Hi, welcome to the Wise to Change podcast. My name is Jenny Karlsson. I'm also known as Jenkamichiko. I'm very proud to have you as listeners with us today, as well as our eminent guest. I'll tell you very soon what we're going to talk about. But first, this podcast is about bringing together inspiring voices, and I want to show you different paths to happiness and well being. And each guest that I invite shares transformative wisdom, powerful insights, and practical tools to help us create life changing shifts and elevate our well being. So today with us is Alexander Herold. Welcome, Alexander.
Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. This time in English. Wonderful.
This time in English, yes, because we want to spread a word of powerful techniques for well being. Isn't that right?
Yes, that sounds very good. Let's help people get back to self love, self confidence, and their inner power, their heart.
Yes, because we have so much power, we have beautiful spirits, and we need to, I guess, just, explore our potential fully. And we have so much to unlock and also much to get rid of. There, we need to find our true selves, our most optimal selves, I guess, in well being.
The true self, this word, I used that in my first when after after the pandemic, I started my NLP and hypnosis courses, and the first time I didn't call it NLP practitioner. I called it True Self School, with the idea to help people get to what we call the true self, or what everybody thinks of it. So I love that word, true self. I like it.
So do I. And I don't think that we always transform into a new self. I do believe, well, at least my path has been that I've peeled off all the layers of what I'm not.
Yes,
And,
wonderful.
and therefore finding my true self, what my truths are, how I communicate my values, identity, and it's very seldom something new.
I give you this perspective, or to the listeners, maybe you have the same as perspective in the end. Um, I don't just do NLP and hypnosis. I developed a technique. Therapy method and the philosophy behind it. It's called Skipnosis. So because I found out that whatever I do when I have clients or when I teach and train people in NLP and hypnosis, they always come with their stories. And behind the story is the truth. And the story in itself is a kind of a hypnosis, because we believe so much in our story and this hypnosis and our experience, and there are emotions involved that make it more real for us. But when we skip the whole hypnosis, we come to what is left, and it is yourself. So the Skipnosis and the Skipnosis original reset therapy is the newest method I use. I started now the first time in my life doing this in Swedish, a course. I certify in this method. And it's of course very holistic, because what you just said is when you peel off, when you do this, what I call skipnosis, when you go behind the story and you remove all the layers, you come to the person you maybe have been all along, even maybe if you're that holistic, even before you were born. And then you connect to the idea that you have for this lifetime. And most people don't have that. Most people don't have this connection. And to regain this connection is what most people search. But searching outside of yourself is not the right way. You need to search behind yourself, behind your stories. And there's a special technique and a method, and it works very well. I've done this now about 1,000 times with clients, and I can say most of them, 70% after one session, have this self-love again and start to hear themselves again. And understand also, it's a logical understanding of what it means to to dig behind the story and not into the story, if you get my meaning. So very interesting. Nice that how you said it. You peel off parts and then you find something that maybe was there all along.
I find it very interesting. I don't know about your method specifically. That's what I'm gonna ask a lot of questions about. But
Go
what
ahead.
can the story comprise of? What kind of stories do people carry around? What what is that all about?
Most of the time, it's what we call it an anchor. You have your map of reality. You have your map. You have through your senses. You take in the whole world, and you model when you're a kid. You model all the things around you. This is how you learn to speak, how you learn to walk, and so on. But you also take in everything else that your parents, your environment, school, other kids, what they believe, what they tell you. And this forms not just experience, it forms belief systems. And in the end, this altogether could be called a world view. And this worldview is above your map of reality. It's like a filter. So if you see anything outside, you're not just taking it in, you're always filtering it through your worldview. And the worldview is mostly imprinted through strong emotional experiences. And that can be positive, but it can also be negative experiences. So most people who come to me, when they talk about their story, for the first thing, you always calibrate your clients. So that meaning you really you listen to nonverbal signs to I can give an example in a second, but you listen not just to the words the client tells you, and this already says everything. So, and then the whole story comes, and then you understand the story is the protective mechanism, and below that is the actual hurt, is the actual problem that keeps the belief of the worldview and everything else in place because it's emotional attached. And it's not easy to remove emotional attachments by yourself because you're not aware of it most of the time. You're just aware of the protective mechanism. So let's say someone calls me and the talk starts like this. Hello, is this Alexander? Yeah, Alexander speaking. Ah, I have a problem. And I say, I just heard all your problem. All this is everything. You already told me what it is about. It is about an emotion that just doesn't come out. And I said, I stopped the person and I asked this question. If this will vanish out of your life completely, also this emotion that just comes out when you finally find someone to talk to, how would your life be? And they say, oh, that would be much better. And that's even before they told me what it is all about. And then they tell me what it is about. And it can be procrastination. It can be control issues. It can be problems with job, money, parents, love, everything else. But all this is the story. If you get my point, this is the story. It's not about the story. It's about this emotion behind the story that needs to be freed. And why is it so hard to understand or to free it yourself? Because most of these emotions, most of these triggers were imprinted very early on in your life, and you didn't understand what was going on. So let's say many of my clients, when I do Skipnosis original reset therapy, or I do hypnotherapy, classic hypnotherapy, or I do a timeline, NLP, or whatever process, many clients go back into their childhood when we find out where is it come from. So this is called regression in whatever technique you use. You go back to the source of the problem. And then there are other kids involved, parents involved, some teachers involved, whatever. Other people are involved. And then we find out the client in that time and space, in that age, didn't understand what's going on. They couldn't understand that the people, the parents, or whoever was involved, they don't have it figured out either. They also bought into a wrong worldview. They also have suppressed emotions. They also don't love themselves. So it's not strange that they can't give the kid what a kid needs. Truth, comfort, love, but love out of freedom and truth. And who has that? Who has really found their truth, their freedom? And I believe if you don't have freedom in yourself, if you don't found your truth, you can't really love. It's a hard statement, and we can argue about that. I'm happy to do that. But so if a kid experienced this as a child, they don't understand it. So they get a lot of emotions. They don't know how to express them. There's not the environment, so they suppress them, and the whole problem starts. But when you, as a grown-up, with a guide, like, yeah, you do the same, or me, or someone who works with these techniques, or my students, go back to this, then we bring understanding into the moment. It's not about forgiving, it's about understanding what is going on. And in the moment of understanding, it's like a light pops up. Oof!
Yeah.
Suddenly, aha! And then the whole story crumbles into pieces. Then the next step would be, if you do this the way I do it now, is the Skipnosis, is to understand what is really the truth. Or not what a guru tells you, what is really your truth. So, meaning that even if you removed the problem, people still have their worldview that is based on the problems and their belief systems. But those can be questions in the moment you have your self-confidence and your self-love back. Then you can question all that, and then you can look behind that. So it's a two-step process. You first free, that's what I call the original reset. Reset your self-love, understand what was going on that you couldn't understand at those times. That removes the issue, that removes all the protective mechanisms, but it doesn't remove the whole belief system that we operate under. So the next step is the Skipnosis, is it questioning your own belief system and understanding this may be not supporting me in living the life I plan to live. Hmm.
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 And those questions are so worth asking. Which programming have I downloaded once?
Yes.
Do I even want this? So
Yes.
what programs do I have? Which limiting beliefs do I have? Why am I what are these? These are not serving me.
Yes.
So that work is well, it was so worth doing because you
Yes.
find out it's also like you said, you shed some light. We shed light on what we have inside. We shed light on it and see, oh, this is actually beautiful. This is self-love. This is self-respect and integrity. Yeah, of course, I love this. This is me. This is who I am. But then this limiting belief doesn't serve me at all. But I need to see it first, right? And then usually often once we see them, like, this is not worth carrying. Why would we even this doesn't serve me, so thank you. No more. It doesn't serve me. It doesn't protect me.
That is a, yeah, maybe it does. It, because let's say it like this. If you know what you're here for, if you know what your true calling is, if you know what your plan for the life, if you have this holistic view, then maybe you can't go the ego way. You can't just let the ego do whatever the ego wants and live the life of what, I don't know, maybe sex, drugs, rock and roll, or whatever the ego wants. But if you feel like this is not your mission, I mean, I came in contact with my life's mission when I was 18 and I was horrified. Oh, is this what I'm supposed to do? And this was. I understood I'm just here beside my own karma to remove my own karma and maybe even collect some new positive and negative karma because you meet people and stuff happens in life. But I'm here to help other people get in contact with their true self. And there was I with 18, understanding that and suddenly also understanding, well, how do you do that? I understood what I had to do. I understood I had this contact myself, but what skills to use? And I really searched in all the wrong places in the beginning. I searched in the New Age spiritual area until I understood this is totally wrong, because the only reason people are not in contact with their true self is not because they don't know about spiritual things. It is because they are lost in the story, in the worldview, in their egos. So I had to go to completely different tools. I had to help people with their two egos. I call it the two egos. The intellectual ego, this inner voice that always complains and thinks about where comes the next money from, where comes the next security, the next job, the next gig, the next whatever from. And the other ego, your emotions, that takes you on a roller coaster. Sometimes it's hallelujah and sometimes it's deeply depressed. And these two play ping pong, play ball with you. And if you don't even know there's a middle, then you're totally lost, because you're lost in this story. These egos tell you all the time. And so I really thought, okay, what to do to help people get into the middle. If you take a coin and you ask people how many sides have a coin, they most say two sides, but there's also, it can actually land in the middle, on the corner.
Yes.
It can stand in balance. So there's always three things to everything, not just two. That's not two sides. Everybody said everything has two sides. No, everything has two sides and a balanced middle. And the balanced middle is your true self. There it talks into. But you can't hear that if your egos play ball. So I understood that later on. And this is how I came to NLP and hypnosis, because NLP is the voice of the ego. It helps you calm and tame your talking ego. It resets your mind. If you you understand how this subconscious mind and this talk works. I also give them nice names, my two egos. It can trigger some people. I always tell my intellectual ego or my materialistic ego, Mammon or Satan, Satan. And I talk to my emotion ego, I call it Lucifer, because it means the light bringer and it's this hallelujah experience. So I found out if you learn NLP, if you learn how to use that correctly, you can silence that voice or you can tame that voice. And if you learn hypnosis and hypnotherapy, you can calm your emotions. You can release all the tension and you can understand. So you start to get the balance. So these are actually not spiritual techniques. Also NLP and hypnotherapy is not in the basic something spiritual or holistic. But this helps you tame these two forces so you get into the middle. And when you're in the middle, then you just need to start listening, asking questions. And when we just started the course, the Skipnosis course, we did it now in Swedish. We spent about 4 or 6 hours in one chapter. And this was about what you said. Also, you need to find these belief systems. But most belief systems hide in a worldview. And this is what most people are not aware. They work with belief systems, but they ignore that all the belief systems have an umbrella. And this is called a worldview. And we talked about the worldview that, I don't know, but maybe 99% of all the civilized people today have. It is a materialistic worldview. It's a philosophy of that you are actually just your brain. You're a biochemical mechanism, a brain. You are a emotionally developed ape. Just check what is on Wikipedia. If you look up what a human Homo sapiens is, it's a description. You're an ape. So welcome to the world of ape. I always think about this joke. There's a little boy starting school, wanting to understand the world, and goes to the biology teacher, and the biology teacher tells all the kids there is something called evolution, and Darwin found out that you're actually an ape. And the little boy was a bit confused about the whole thing and thinks about his parents. They don't look like apes, but okay, I'm an ape. And the next lesson, the little boy has religion. And there's this teacher teaching religion, and they say, you all come from God. And then the boy gets more confused, but then on the way home, he figured it all out. And he goes home and tells his parents, I figured it all out. What did you figure out? God is an ape. God is an ape. That's how it all needs to be. So, so this materialistic worldview governs even the most spiritual people today. Just to think about what most coaches talk about, or how they talk about it, always about the brain. Change your brain, or they put pictures of brains on their and I even did this mistake myself, how the brain works and so on. And they talk about energy. The word energy comes up again and again and again without knowing what do they actually mean, but it must be something measured. And as long as we are in the brain world and in measurement, we are in the materialistic worldview. And as long as you're in the materialistic worldview, you will not get to your true self, because that is beyond that. And this is what they found out in this 6 hours. What happens if you really think beyond all the materialistic things we have learned in childhood, in school, that we don't even know governing our lives. So very interesting. Very interesting. Goes very deep.
I agree. There's something definitely beyond the vision, beyond our vision
Mm,
also.
mm.
What lies beyond is where magic happens, because my vision is my belief now. Like this is within my vision. This is what I can visualize. But what lies been beyond it, what I cannot even plan, when I surrender and open up, wow, that's where experiences occur.
Then you need to ask your following question. I think people can relate to that when you say surrender. Would you agree that you also mean when I follow my intuition? Could that be something in that area?
Yes,
Mm.
definitely, because then I'm trusting my intuition, and in that case, there's no control. There's no I don't know what happens. I have a gut sense. I feel. I cannot describe it in words. But first, when I let go of how things could be, actually, it becomes better than I ever imagined. And there, I describe it as a vision beyond a vision because it's
Yes. I offer you a solution if you want. And
yes, please.
you just take this as a Rubik's Cube, and if it suits you, use it, and not, don't use it. The word intuition and is mostly used when people talk about it. They say my intuition. So there's this my in the beginning. That means it is actually yours. So the first question to ask is the intuition, the experience, maybe it is from your true self. That's why it's called in. It's something that comes in. So it's like inspiration. Same word is same idea. When you get an inspirational thought and you say, my inspiration, I had this idea and then it worked wonderful. And many people get that on toilet when their ego is not there. Ego always stands outside of the toilet. Ego is not interested to experience that. I always make this joke, but many people can relate. They get the best ideas in the shower, on toilet, or on other strange places where your ego just don't want to be there. So it steps
Sure.
out, and when your ego steps out, your coin lands on the balanced mid. And you suddenly hear inspirational thoughts, ideas, imaginations. I had once a client who wakes up every morning or a couple of mornings a week and have imaginations of inventing ideas. And many of them he patented. So they actually work. So the interesting in this whole thing is people say it's mine. And that means it's connected with what you call me, myself, my I. And then you need to ask yourself, but who is you, this my? Maybe this my is actually your true self. And the only way it can talk to you, because otherwise your egos have taken over, is through these ways: intuition, inspiration, imaginations. Or what I always say, when your heart talks, then maybe you should listen, because it is yourself calling. So you use gut and feeling and so on. So, and then the idea that comes, the intuition that comes, is already yours. It maybe was yours all along. And the funny thing is, what you do when you follow it is you follow the plan you had all along, but your egos are a bit surprised about it. And when you know these techniques, NLP hypnosis, and you tamed your egos actually will start supporting you, because they understand. So funny. But they understand they work for a divine being. And what ego wouldn't love to do that? The divine being each of your listeners, and your Jenny and my true self. That's of course a divine being with a perfect plan for this life, maybe planned ahead, and then forgotten, because after you're 3 years old, your ego pops up. Then with 7, it develops even more. Suppressed emotions come in, a worldview come in. You adjust your brain, you are just an ape, and suddenly you have an umbrella of a worldview, but the umbrella has 2 effects. It keeps you warm inside in your worldview, keeps your egos playing ball, but keeps the voice that can't get in through the umbrella, your own voice, outside, because this worldview don't believe in a spirit. There is no spirit. That's why also in the New Age and esoteric area, I worked with all this stuff for many, many years. I started when I was 18. So I did all this. I was a Tantra yoga teacher. I was a Reiki master. I did, name it, I surely did it. I danced with Osho, and Dalai Lama was at Finton Foundation, and we're everywhere. And they always, it's a generalization, but many people always talk about the soul, never about the spirit. And then if I ask, but what is the difference between soul and spirit? Because there is a difference, otherwise why use 2 words in all languages I actually know? Well, it's the same thing, but it is not. So the spirit is outside this materialistic or this dualistic worldview about body and soul, or just body. And if you don't have a spirit in a worldview, how would you ever listen to it? You understand? So how that's this Ebenezer Scrooge effect. He experienced, you know, this Christmas Carol story. These 3 ghosts, so the ghosts come, and he says it's humbug. I just ate some bad chicken or whatever it was, so I don't believe in it. And this explains wonderfully this materialistic worldview. You can't believe in something that your worldview don't allow you to believe. So it's not just you need to remove or question all your belief, you need to question the whole worldview to be able to hear yourself. Because I don't believe, that is my worldview, I don't believe people need to have a guru to teach them about spirituality. I believe people need to learn to remove the materialistic worldview or wrong worldview, and then they hear their own spirit. They don't need anybody to tell them what they hear. They know. You don't need an guru or a religion. When you're in contact, you know. You just know.
That is quite amazing journey to make.
Yeah.
And it's eye-opening as well, in my experience, in my opinion. It's beautiful, and also just to be very open-minded and to listen in and ask questions once you're there. It's beautiful. And it takes some work to get there. And then, like you said, to be aware that there is spirit. And some have worldviews where there isn't a spirit, or maybe in the past, or it was just well, in that society didn't allow those, or there was another way of other higher powers, or other authorities, if you may. The words we use, who has the answer? Who do I trust? Where do I put my trust? Who do I listen to? Whose opinions matter? But then one of my most beautiful insights is that it's my opinion that matters, and I also, deep within, I have the best answers if I ask myself these questions.
Yes. Yes.
But all my life, I've also been searching around outside myself. And now, I ask myself, or I ask somewhere deeper within, hard to describe, but that's where the true beauty and power lie.
That's you.
That is,
That's
yes,
not just deeper within. That is who you are. That's again, mm, when people get this experience, they still can't understand that is actually me. The rest is not me. The egos is not you. Your body is not you. The whole worldview is not you. When you're in contact, you're actually in contact with who you truly are. Uh, for your listeners, there's one very interesting thing. In this materialistic worldview, they say, or it is in this philosophy, because it is not a science, it's a philosophy. There's no scientific proof, actually. And if you listen to some scientists who have thought it all through, they all come to the same conclusion in the end. There must be something like a God, or like a beginning, like a force behind. Behind the things that is material and measurable must be something that is not, that has initiated all this. It's otherwise, I mean, okay, today many people believe everything is just a coincidence. The whole universe just popped up and you popped up, and because your brain is so complex, it suddenly decided to say hello. So this is a materialistic worldview. The brain has become so complex, so it developed an I. And my spiritual worldview is the I needed this experience to develop. So everything starts with the spirit, the I behind it. It's now we go back to that, but here is it. If you have this, if listeners have this materialistic worldview, I know people who say, "Yeah, you're just an animal." Ask yourself the following questions: what is the main difference between a human and animals? There is one. And if you think a bit, then you find it out because I just said it. First and of all, you think. You think. And then you need to understand what is actually a thinking process. What is that? You make meaning of the things that otherwise wouldn't make any meaning. You connect the dots and create the meaning in between. That is what thinking is. Thinking is not words. Thinking is giving the word you hear the meaning it has. Yeah, it's deep. And mm, then you find out, wait a second, It's not just that I think that is different. Humans ask questions and they answer them. Animals don't do that. So, is it really true that humans are animals? We think, we ask questions, we answer that. So, and this is the basic in my teaching. When I teach this, I say, that's all we know. Because science, the funny thing with science is can't explain anything really. We go into the biology and we find out. Biology tells us everything alive comes out of a living thing. Mother gives birth, whatever. Also, life is only created out of life. So, and then you can ask, where did the first life come from? They can't answer that. The science of life can't answer where life comes from actually. So you need to go to the chemists or physicists, and they try to understand with dark matter, with protons, electrons, quantum physics, with electromagnetism and everything and so on. But they in the end can't explain it either. They don't know what material actually is. They have no idea. So the only thing that we somehow scientifically know is based on logic. You think and you ask questions and you answer them. So start there. Use these tools always. Always ask questions. Always try to answer themselves. Also, if it's deep questions, always think everything through. This maybe helps you get beyond this umbrella that limits you. So wonderful that you do that, Jenny. Ask questions, answer them, and the best answer comes out of yourself. Nobody else can answer that question like you do.
It's so true, and getting there is is
It's
the
a journey.
process. It's a
Yeah,
journey, and
yeah,
then the
yeah,
journey continues, like, "Wow,
yeah,
this is amazing place to
yeah,
be,"
yeah.
and I won't
And
go back. I'm not going back.
no,
So,
because
I
you
don't need
don't.
security
Huh?
outside. I don't need to place my trust and security outside.
No,
I got
wonderful.
there, but it took me 45, 46 years to get
Goodness, there's
there,
nothing.
you know?
I have clients who are 76 and start learning that. So this is wonderful that you got there so early.
I also am a language teacher, and I tell my students that the questions you ask, so they say more about your understanding that the answers you're looking for. The questions you ask tell me so much about you and how I can help you further than if I just give you the answers. But the questions themselves is the interesting thing. We don't have answers to everything, but the questions like, wow, that's a beautiful question. I know you'll get there. We'll get there. It's not always about the answers, it's about the questions. As in coaching as well, we ask questions.
Yes.
We help
Yes.
others ask questions to themselves. Like, so we are abundant. That's our goal to help others ask themselves questions. Right, I don't know, right or wrong questions, but ask questions. Do that.
That's what the Skipnosis has. The second part is the thought school. And the idea is I don't teach my students what things mean. I ask questions. So we started actually yesterday. It was the first day of thought school. After we talked about the worldview and we talked about science, we go through everything. We want to have a kind of logic statistic what we are doing. So we actually work in the field of science. And and we talked about the worldview and how this affects you. And now we are in thought school before we go into the original reset therapy. And all my students who go, they went they went my NLP hypnosis, so they already know how to tame their egos. So now it's time to break through, and that's what they actually say. I'm here to finally understand why I'm here for. And it's perfect. I love it. I love it. They say, yeah, I can't tell you. Um, but you will find out. And this thought school works like this. I ask them a question about something. So, and then I let them like 5 to 10 minutes think about it and share what they come up to. But I tell them, you need to learn to think differently, because normally you think abstract, you think automatically. We call that in NLP, you think stimulus response, you think like out of your anchored. So if you have a name for something, it is anchored what it means, and you just repeat what you have learned about that. Like when a teacher tells you, you learn this and that, this is the answers. If you put these answers in your test, result will be better. In your test, you will get the degree and you get the job. And I say, I actually want them to not do that. I say, it's forbidden to use these sort of. I want you to say, I have no idea what it is, and just live in the question, what is it? What
Right.
is it here for? What is the idea behind this thing? Because this is the spiritual view. The idea behind it is the spirit. The spirit and the idea is the same thing. And if you get into the context of the idea of a thing, an object, or a word, or a person or an animal or a plant behind it, you understand the life's purpose. And if you understand, if you coach, you need to understand the idea of your client, and you need to understand your own idea if you really should coach. Maybe your
Yeah.
idea is something completely different. So the first word I gave them was, what is a word? What is the word? What is a word good for? And they dig deep, and so in the end they came all to the in a way we came, or let's say my hope is they all understood the following solution. And if you want to really think about it, stop the pod right now. Think about, what is a word? What does the word mean? Why are we using words? What is the idea behind a word? Also not a specific word, a word in itself. So stop. Okay. Otherwise it'd be a spoiler. So, and the solution was, the idea of a word is, the word is nothing else but a name for a thing. The word. Yes, yeah, and that means you thought outside of the box, because most people would say a word is thinking, a word has meaning, a word has emotions, a word. No, the idea of why words exist in the universe is because it's a label. It's a name for something. So next week we will continue and talk about what is thinking. What is the thought? What is actually thought? If a word is a name, a label, what is the thought? In Germany, they have these schools, but in Sweden and in English, no. So wonderful. I love this. And this helps people to think beyond the umbrella, beyond the way of thoughts we are learned to be. Because we need to start question stuff that's going on in this world. We need to start question stuff that we do to ourselves, our egos do to ourselves. Like, you learned NLP, you know this path integration, where you look at two different essences, personalities of yourself. These are kind of two egos you tame, and we need to look beyond that. And to learn NLP, hypnosis, and I also teach EFT, emotional freedom technique, is to start to then go to the next level to find out who you really are, but not by listening to a guru who tells you what the guru believes you are. No, by asking the right questions and understanding how to ask questions, how to answer them. So you learn actually to think. It's so cool. I love it.
I love how this is somehow a mixture of what makes us human as well. For instance, philosophy, psychology, quantum physics. It's just a mix of everything. Also, philosophy is also about asking questions or making meaning. And there are different schools there too, right?
Yes.
And different perspectives
Yes.
of viewing. I never took philosophy, but now I'm reading everything I can. I want to read much more about philosophy.
Oh,
But that's now, I wish that our young people learn this in school. Some do in high school, but not all. I wish that I don't know. It helped me so much. Also psychology, I never took it as a course, but I've read everything I can find, and I'm still reading. I'm just yeah, early on.
go into the Goethe, read Schiller. That is amazing. But you can also start where philosophy started. You can start with Aristotle. You can actually study logic in universities still. That is the first science. Not many people know that. First science that we developed is Aristotle's logic. Still available, still used today, still the foundation of all the science we have today. Without logic, you can't do science. And the funny thing in this is when people tell you everything just happens without no reason, the whole universe is, aha, and you came to this conclusion through logic. Because you have used logic to come to any conclusion at all. How logical is that? If you come to a conclusion with something that you believe doesn't exist. So logic or meaning or something is logical or can happen out of a reason. Also Schiller, Goethe. Yeah, I love also Selma Lagerlöf, a Swedish author who wrote a lot of very philosophical like stories. And Dante, oh hallelujah. But you said also something quant physics. And I studied in Göttingen, in a town in Germany, and there's a statue of Max Planck, who is one of the founders of quantum physics. Oh, the funny thing is, he said, this is my way of quoting it. So if I get it wrong, please throw your stones. But here it comes. He said, behind materia is are these things that we call electrons, protons, neutrons, and so on, are these particles. And these particles, we believe, they move, they rotate, and they move. And we don't actually know what it actually is. You can't see that, and we don't actually know what materia is, but there are these things that are rotating. So that means, and he asked question, that means material things can only exist if something in it rotates. There's a movement there. Movement creates material things. And then he started thinking outside the box and asked, where does a movement come from? How is it possible these things are moving? Why are atoms moving? And then he says, okay, he uses logic, and he says movement can only come to an object if a force from outside affects that object. Okay, there we have the answer. There's a force affecting the atoms, so they start to move, so material start to exist. But wait a second. Now I have a new question. Where does the force come from? The force, and he's not talking about energy that most people talk about. I always, when I talk to people who are very spiritual and say everything is energy, I ask, what is energy? Please look at Wikipedia. I think most people don't know. They don't think it through. They don't ask the right questions. So I think they mean the power behind, a spiritual power behind it, but they call it energy. And I think the word is misused. We should call it something different, like spirit power or whatever. Anyway, so he said this force must also have a reason to be there. And the force cannot come if there was not an intention, a will to put this force into motion. Aha! Can a will just pop up out of nowhere and create all that is? No. A will or an intuition or an intention can only exist out of something that has the capacity to have a will. So what says Max Planck? In the end, we can only come to the conclusion that what people have talked about since start of human civilization, there must be a force. They call it God, whatever you want to call it, but there is something that is not measurable that has created everything. It has, at least it has set everything into motion because it has the will to do so. And then people ask, yeah, but where does that come from? And that's a very lovely question, and even that we can answer. When you experience your true self, when you suddenly come in contact with your true self, you get an experience of your true self. Through that experience, through that understanding, through that connection with your true self start to exist. And it's like breathing. It's like this symbol of the phoenix, this bird that burns and then falls down to ashes and stands out of the ashes. That is spirit. Spirit creates itself through its own understanding itself. So you could say spirit thinks. It thinks itself into being, into existence all the time because it is, and here's again the materialistic worldview, it exists outside the time-space material continuum. There is no energy where spirit is because energy is something you can measure based if it's a physical form, word for physical thing. So there is something beyond everything and that functions completely different. And this is you. You exist beyond that. Every human being is spirit, if there is a spirit beyond it, as in my worldview, there is. This creates itself out of itself all the time, and it can grow. It can grow by experience itself in this material, in a time-space continuum. That's why we are here. I can talk hours and hours about this stuff.
We can do that, and I'm pretty convinced that our listeners have gazillions of thoughts now. I hope so. We hope so. And many questions to ask. Yes. So, if you would give our listeners a question, a task, something to reflect on, what would you like to send them off with after listening to us now?
Mm, what is it you really are here for? What is your mission? But I would like to, if that's okay for you, I would like to make it a 3-step question. First question, not who are you, but what are you? This is the basic of everything. If you find the answer to what you truly are, then you can ask, who am I individually? So what is a human being? Who am I individually? And then the third is, what is my mission here? Why am I here? Why did I incarnate into this? I call always the world into this gym, into this exercise studio, because you always get challenges and you get forces against you, because the only way to grow is through challenges. So what are you? What is a human? Who are you after you figure that out? And what is your mission in life? Because if you have a mission, that is bigger than all the goals together you have. If you don't like the word mission, use the word vision or use the word passion.
Your
But
why. What is your
your
why?
why,
Your
yeah,
ikigai,
your
there are so many words for this, so many labels for this.
your life work, your dharma, if you want, like Bhagavad Gita. So your story beyond your story, what is it? And then of course become one of Jenny and Alexander. Learn NLP, learn hypnosis, train and tame your egos. so you can start to maybe connect with this all the time, this balanced true self, because we need that today. I think we would have needed that 100 years ago, maybe 200 years ago, and history. I would say the storms we have went through prevented a bit that we could develop the way we could, because in stormy times people are more afraid of dying than finding out they can't die. Also in a spiritual sense, we can die in a materialistic sense. So fear can be really this paralyzing effect. And if you experience a lot of fear, ask yourself, whose fear is it? Maybe it's not actually yours. Maybe it's part of your worldview, it's part of your belief system, it's part of not having this light we talked about before, this understanding of what happened in your life, and the fear. Also, I think you agree. When you're in this state, when you really are connected with your true self, with your intuition, your inspiration, your imagination, and the light, and whatever you call it, there don't exist any fear. Fear is absent. That means fear is not part of your true self. So fear is always something else. So if you feel fear, if you're afraid of things, be loving to that fear, but ask it questions. Call the fear in front of you and ask, hey, fear, what do you actually want? Where are you from? Why are you here? What is your plan? And what's behind you? And start communicating with your fear. So many people try to communicate with God to remove the fear, but I would say start communicating with your fear. Put it outside of
Yes.
yourself. Dissociate from it and find out what this is all about. And suddenly, maybe it gets very annoyed of you and
It does,
goes
and then
away.
it dissipates once we call them, we see them.
Yeah.
Our fears and our nightmares. I learned the
Yes.
most from my nightmares because once
Ah,
I took action on my nightmares, like,
you can
this is
shoot
things
them.
I should act on.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow,
Yes.
life-changing. We can speak forever and ever,
Yeah, we
Alexander.
can. Yes, we
We
can.
can. I don't
Yeah.
think the listeners have that much patience, but
Right.
they would yeah, maybe they have. Anyway, when they want to get hold of you to learn more about NLP, Skipnosis, hypnosis, EFT, and all their amazing techniques, where do they get hold of you?
Yes, I'm everywhere on all social media. Anyway, um, I can make an offer because for the first time in my life, I give my big NLP Deluxe education in English, starting in April this year, 2026. And if you're interested, it's a 3-month course. It's very, very good offer. It's first time in English, so I give a special price. But I will give you, if you connect with me through email, through SMS, through Facebook, or whatever Jenny will give you, all my contacts. You can reach me through Facebook or LinkedIn or my email. And yeah. So if you say the name of this pot, you get a special deal. We take off 10% of the sum, and I give you a special individual session so you can experience original research therapy firsthand yourself. So if you're interested, learning NLP, hypnosis, EFT, and all this, 3 months, then we start in April.
Yes, so click the links that I have in the description of this podcast, of this episode specifically. Thank you very much, Alexander, for sharing your wisdom and techniques.
Thank you,
It's my
Jenny, for
pleasure.
having me.
So thank you very much for listening to the Wise to Change podcast. Have a beautiful day, night, evening, wherever you are, whenever you are. Take care.